A black female doctor, on her way to save lives, is wrongfully stopped and aggressively detained by two white officers in a shocking display of racial prejudice. Her calm composure crumbles under their relentless accusations, but little do they know, this single act will unravel a web of corruption and ignite a battle for justice. As her story spreads, the officers find themselves in the crosshairs of public outrage, facing consequences they never imagined. What starts as an abuse of power spirals into a movement that shakes the foundations of the system. Stay tuned to uncover the twists and turns of this gripping story. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful content. Sophia Grant emerged from the cafe, her sharp eyes focused on the tasks ahead. As she approached her car, a patrol vehicle abruptly screeched to a halt nearby, red and blue lights slicing through the night. Two officers, Derek Lane and Mike Reed, stepped out, their movements calculated and purposeful. Without hesitation, Lane fixated on Sophia, his commanding presence sending an unspoken message. Lane's scrutiny fell heavily on Sophia. Her instincts flared as he demanded her compliance. Reed watched with a smirk, his casual demeanor contrasting Lane's intensity. Sophia's refusal to hand over her bag sparked immediate tension. Lane's jaw tightened as his hand moved toward his utility belt, signaling his escalating impatience. Reed stepped forward, his expression hardening as he mirrored Lane's menace. Phones discreetly appeared among the growing crowd, recording the standoff. Sophia's firm stance only heightened the officer's aggression. Lane declared her resistance unacceptable, his tone sharp and unrelenting. The unfolding scene shifted suddenly as Richard Hayes, chief of surgery, intervened. His authoritative presence disrupted the officer's momentum, his words cutting through their assertive facade. Hayes's connection to Sophia was clear, and his reputation quickly turned the crowd's unease into support. In a surveillance room, an unseen figure monitored the live feed. Observing Hayes's disruption, they noted the shift with detached amusement. The figure's calculated patience suggested a broader plan. Back at the scene, Lane's frustration boiled over. Before the confrontation could escalate further, a sleek black SUV arrived, and James Walker, the police commissioner, emerged. His commanding directive silenced the chaos. Lane's hesitation gave way to reluctant compliance as he released Sophia. Reed retreated, his earlier bravado replaced with tension. Walker's sharp reprimand promised consequences. His attention turned briefly to ensure Sophia's well-being. Though outwardly composed, Sophia's internal unease lingered. Walker's authoritative demeanor calmed the crowd, but Sophia recognized the deeper implications. This was more than an isolated incident. It was the first tremor of a larger upheaval. Sophia sat in the dimly lit hospital break room, her mind replaying the encounter with the officers. Her hands trembled slightly as she tried to steady her breathing. The humiliation and the ominous warning in Lane's demeanor lingered. She knew this wasn't over. Meanwhile, at the police station, Lane and Reed stood in front of James Walker, the police commissioner. Walker's gaze was icy as he demanded an explanation for their actions. Lane shifted uncomfortably but maintained his stern facade. Reed, however, leaned against the wall, his smirk barely concealed. Walker's voice cut through the tension like a blade. He was aware of their previous misconduct and made it clear that this incident could be their undoing. Lane's mind raced as he calculated his response, while Reed's confidence wavered under the commissioner's scrutiny. Despite the reprimand, both officers knew they had gone too far to back out now. Their next move had to be decisive. Hours later, Lane and Reed met in a shadowed parking lot. Lane's frustration was palpable as he paced, muttering under his breath. Reed's cocky demeanor was replaced with nervous energy. They discussed their next steps, their conversation laced with veiled threats and mutual mistrust. They were aware that Sophia's refusal to comply had exposed them, but instead of retreating, they decided to double down. Sophia received a call from Commissioner Walker, apologizing for the incident and requesting her cooperation in an internal investigation. Her initial instinct was to decline, reliving the ordeal felt unbearable. But as Walker explained the potential for systemic change, Sophia's resolve hardened. She agreed to testify, even as a knot of fear twisted in her stomach. The shadowy figure from the surveillance room observed the growing turmoil with satisfaction. Their plans were progressing, and the tension between Lane, Reed, and Walker was exactly what they needed. They issued instructions to their assistant to escalate the situation, setting the stage for further chaos. The assistant hesitated but complied, their unease evident. The next day, Sophia arrived at the station to provide her statement. The air was thick with tension as she entered the room where Walker and a detective awaited her. Sophia's voice trembled at first, but she quickly found her strength, recounting every detail of the encounter. Walker listened intently, his face betraying a mix of anger and determination. The detective's pen flew across the page, capturing every word. Unbeknownst to Sophia, Lane and Reed had been monitoring her movements. They watched from an unmarked car parked nearby, their expressions dark with resentment. Lane's grip on the steering wheel tightened as he watched her exit the station. Reed's smirk returned, but it was laced with malice. They knew they couldn't afford to let her testimony stand. That evening, Sophia's phone buzzed with an anonymous message. The words were simple but chilling: "You've made a mistake. Drop it now." She stared at the screen, her heart pounding. She forwarded the message to Walker, who assured her they were taking it seriously. But the fear in her chest told her otherwise. Reed met with another officer, a burly man named Carter, known for his willingness to bend the rules. They discussed a plan to discredit Sophia, their voices low and hurried. Carter's eyes gleamed with excitement as they laid out the details, but Reed couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing with fire. At the same time, Sophia confided in her mentor, Dr. Richard Hayes. His concern was evident as he listened. Hayes encouraged her to stay strong, offering his full support. His words provided a momentary sense of relief, but Sophia knew the battle ahead would only grow more intense. The shadowy figure received a report on the escalating situation. Their smirk widened as they reviewed the details. The chaos was spreading, and they were ready to push it further. They instructed their assistant to contact an external party, someone who could add an unpredictable element to the growing conflict. That night, Sophia noticed a car parked near her apartment. The engine idled, and the driver's face was obscured in shadow. Her pulse quickened as she locked her doors and called Walker. He assured her they would increase patrols in her area, but Sophia knew the threat was closer than ever. Lane and Reed's desperation reached a breaking point. They concocted a plan to stage a suspicious incident involving Sophia, hoping to cast doubt on her credibility. Their actions grew more reckless, their fear of exposure driving them to extremes. Sophia's day at the hospital was interrupted by a sudden power outage. The backup generators kicked in, but the disruption unnerved her. Later, she discovered a note slipped into her locker: "Stay silent, or else." The message was clear, but so was her determination. Reed's meeting with Carter took a darker turn as they discussed eliminating loose ends. Carter's demeanor shifted, his excitement tempered by suspicion. He questioned Reed's loyalty, hinting at a deeper web of corruption. Reed's confidence faltered as he realized he might be in over his head. Walker's investigation uncovered troubling connections between Lane, Reed, and other officers with questionable records. The deeper he dug, the more he realized the extent of the corruption. He called a meeting with trusted allies, laying out the evidence and formulating a plan to dismantle the network. The shadowy figure received an update on Walker's investigation. Their expression darkened as they realized the commissioner was closer to the truth than expected. They issued new orders, directing their resources toward neutralizing Walker's efforts. Sophia's resolve was tested further when her car was vandalized. The message, "This is your last warning," was scrawled across the hood in red paint. Fear threatened to consume her, but she channeled it into determination. She reached out to an advocacy group, seeking allies in her fight for justice. The advocacy group's leader, a fiery woman named Maya, met with Sophia and listened to her story. Maya's passion reignited Sophia's resolve, and together they planned a press conference to expose the misconduct. The event would put Sophia in the spotlight, but it was a risk she was willing to take. The press conference drew a crowd of supporters, reporters, and skeptics. Sophia's voice trembled as she began to speak, but the conviction in her words silenced the murmurs. She recounted her experience, calling for accountability and systemic change. The crowd erupted in applause, but the moment of triumph was short-lived. As Sophia left the stage, a commotion broke out. A man pushed through the crowd, shouting accusations. Security intervened, but the disruption rattled Sophia. The man's words hinted at deeper secrets, leaving her shaken and more determined to uncover the truth. Lane and Reed watched the press conference from a distance, their expressions a mix of anger and panic. They realized their grip on the situation was slipping, and their actions grew more desperate. Reed suggested involving their shadowy benefactor, but Lane hesitated, sensing the danger. The shadowy figure observed the chaos with satisfaction. They knew the pieces were moving into place, but the unpredictability of Lane and Reed worried them. They decided to take a more active role, ensuring their plans stayed on track. Sophia returned home to find an envelope on her doorstep. Inside was a photo of her family with the words "You're not safe" scrawled across the back. Her hands shook as she called Walker, who promised to send protection. But the threat felt more personal than ever. Walker confronted Lane and Reed, his patience finally snapping. He laid out the evidence against them, warning that their time was running out. Lane's defiance cracked, but Reed's smirk returned, his confidence bolstered by their unseen ally. The shadowy figure made their move, contacting Reed directly. They provided resources and instructions, solidifying their control over the situation. Reed's fear mingled with excitement as he realized the power at his disposal. Sophia's press conference sparked a wave of support and backlash. Her resolve deepened as she received messages from others who had faced similar injustices. The advocacy group rallied around her, organizing a march to demand accountability. The march was met with both support and resistance. Tensions boiled over as counter-protesters clashed with demonstrators. Sophia stood at the front, her voice unwavering as she led the crowd. But amidst the chaos, she spotted Lane and Reed watching from a distance, their presence a chilling reminder of the danger she faced. The shadowy figure observed the march from their control room, their expression unreadable. They knew the next steps would be critical, and their plans began to take shape. The lines between ally and enemy blurred as the stakes grew higher, setting the stage for an explosive confrontation. Sophia stood in her apartment, staring at the message on her phone. The threat against her family chilled her to the bone. She replayed every step she had taken since the incident, wondering if there had been a moment she could have stopped this escalation. Her determination to fight back hardened further, but fear for her loved ones clawed at her resolve. At the same time, Commissioner Walker reviewed the increasing threats targeting Sophia. The evidence suggested a coordinated effort, not random intimidation. Walker's suspicions fell heavily on Lane and Reed, but the deeper connections he was uncovering hinted at a larger conspiracy. He called his trusted deputy, ordering a review of past cases linked to the officers. Time was running out, and Walker knew the enemy was watching his every move. In a dimly lit room, Lane and Reed argued heatedly. Lane's composure cracked as Reed pushed for a more aggressive approach. Their disagreements stemmed from their growing distrust of each other and the pressure mounting against them. Reed, emboldened by the shadowy benefactor's resources, dismissed Lane's hesitations. Their alliance, once united by shared corruption, was fraying under the weight of the unfolding chaos. The shadowy figure watched Lane and Reed's unraveling with interest. They had anticipated this moment and planned accordingly. Their assistant handed them a file containing sensitive information about Sophia's allies, including Commissioner Walker and Maya's advocacy group. The figure smiled, knowing this would be the next step in their escalating strategy. Sophia attended a meeting with Maya and other members of the advocacy group. Tension filled the room as they discussed the latest developments. Maya's fiery resolve clashed with the cautious optimism of the others. They debated the best course of action, torn between taking a bold public stand and protecting Sophia from further harm. Ultimately, they decided to organize a public rally to keep the momentum going. Sophia's nerves were frayed, but she agreed, knowing this was her chance to amplify their message. Reed met with Carter again, their conversation laced with paranoia. Carter had grown suspicious of Reed's motives and the shadowy benefactor's true intentions. Reed, desperate to maintain control, revealed fragments of the plan to Carter, promising that their involvement would ensure their safety. Carter's eyes narrowed as he assessed Reed's words, recognizing the desperation behind them. Walker's investigation uncovered alarming details about Lane and Reed's activities. Financial records showed unexplained transactions linked to a shell company with ties to other officers under scrutiny. Walker shared the findings with his deputy, who urged him to move quickly. Walker agreed, but he knew the danger of acting without concrete evidence. Every decision felt like walking a tightrope. The rally day arrived. Sophia stood behind the stage, her heart pounding as the crowd gathered. Maya's words of encouragement steadied her nerves. When Sophia stepped onto the stage, the crowd erupted in applause. She began speaking, her voice growing stronger as she recounted her experiences and demanded accountability. The energy of the crowd bolstered her, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. In the crowd, Lane observed with cold calculation. Reed stood further back, his demeanor unreadable. They were there on orders from the shadowy figure, their presence a reminder that Sophia's fight was far from over. Lane's phone buzzed with a message containing instructions for their next move. He glanced at Reed, who nodded subtly. The tension between them was palpable, but they knew better than to disobey. As the rally reached its peak, a commotion erupted near the edge of the crowd. A group of counter-protesters clashed with Sophia's supporters. Chaos spread quickly, and the situation spiraled out of control. Sophia's security team rushed her off stage as Maya and others tried to calm the crowd. Amid the chaos, Lane and Reed slipped away, their mission partially accomplished. Sophia returned home to find another envelope waiting for her. This time, it contained detailed information about her family's daily routines, accompanied by a chilling message: "This is your final warning." She called Walker immediately, her voice shaking as she explained the contents. Walker promised swift action, but Sophia could hear the strain in his voice. The pressure was mounting on everyone involved. The shadowy figure reviewed footage of the rally's chaos. Their assistant provided updates on the disruption's success and the growing divisions among the advocacy group. The figure's smile widened. They issued new orders, targeting Walker directly. It was time to destabilize the commissioner and sever Sophia's strongest ally. Walker received an anonymous tip about an imminent threat against his office. He tightened security measures, but the tip felt too convenient. He suspected a trap but couldn't ignore the possibility of real danger. As he prepared for the worst, his team uncovered evidence suggesting that someone within the department was leaking information to Lane and Reed. The realization shook Walker, but he knew he couldn't falter now. Carter confronted Reed about the benefactor's true intentions. The conversation grew heated as Carter accused Reed of endangering them both. Reed, cornered, lashed out, revealing his growing paranoia. Their alliance was unraveling, and Carter began considering his own contingency plan. Sophia's advocacy efforts gained national attention. Media outlets covered her story, amplifying her voice and drawing more support to the cause. But with the attention came increased risks. Sophia's phone buzzed with a string of anonymous threats. She forwarded each one to Walker, but the sheer volume left her feeling overwhelmed. Lane and Reed's next move involved planting false evidence to discredit Walker and create public doubt about his integrity. They enlisted Carter's help, exploiting his wavering loyalty. Carter hesitated but ultimately agreed, knowing refusal would make him a target. The plan was risky, but the benefactor's influence emboldened them. Walker's team discovered inconsistencies in recent reports linked to Lane and Reed. The discrepancies pointed to deliberate tampering, and Walker suspected the shadowy benefactor's hand in the scheme. He ordered a full audit of the department, determined to root out the corruption. Sophia attended a televised interview, her voice steady as she addressed the threats and challenges she faced. Her composure inspired viewers, but behind the scenes, she struggled with the weight of the fight. Maya's unwavering support kept her grounded, but Sophia knew the danger was far from over. During the interview, Lane and Reed watched from a safe house provided by the benefactor. Reed's frustration boiled over as he criticized Sophia's resilience. Lane remained silent, his focus on the benefactor's next set of instructions. Their dynamic had shifted, with Lane growing increasingly wary of Reed's instability. Walker's audit uncovered a crucial lead, a direct connection between the benefactor and several high-ranking officials. The revelation was a turning point, but it also painted a target on Walker's back. He briefed Sophia and Maya, urging them to stay vigilant as he prepared to expose the network. The benefactor received word of Walker's discovery and acted swiftly. They ordered a coordinated attack on Walker's credibility, utilizing planted evidence and orchestrated leaks. The goal was to discredit him before he could release his findings. Sophia's advocacy group planned another rally, determined to counter the benefactor's escalating tactics. Maya took charge, rallying the group with fiery speeches and strategic planning. Sophia admired Maya's courage but couldn't shake the feeling that the benefactor was always one step ahead. The night before the rally, Sophia's apartment was broken into. Her files were ransacked, and a message was left on her mirror: "You can't win." She called Walker, who dispatched a team to secure her residence. Despite the violation, Sophia's resolve deepened. She knew the fight was bigger than herself. At the rally, tensions were high. Sophia spoke passionately, her words resonating with the crowd. But as the event progressed, an explosion erupted near the stage, sending shockwaves through the crowd. Chaos ensued as security evacuated Sophia and Maya. The attack left several injured, and the benefactor's message was clear: no one was safe. Walker convened an emergency meeting with Sophia, Maya, and his trusted allies. The attack confirmed their suspicions about the benefactor's reach. They devised a plan to counter the benefactor's influence, knowing the stakes had never been higher. The benefactor observed the aftermath of the explosion, their expression unreadable. They knew the attack had escalated the conflict, but it was a calculated risk. As their plans unfolded, the benefactor prepared for the next phase, ensuring every move was meticulously planned. Sophia and Maya vowed to continue their fight, drawing strength from the support of their growing movement. Walker's determination remained unshaken, but he knew the battle ahead would test their limits. The lines between ally and enemy blurred further, setting the stage for an inevitable showdown. Sophia sat in the back of a secured vehicle, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. The explosion at the rally had shaken her to her core, but it had also ignited a new determination. Across from her, Maya leaned forward, her eyes blazing with fury. The attack had only strengthened her resolve, and she was already outlining their next steps. Meanwhile, Walker stood in his office, poring over the fragmented pieces of evidence his team had gathered. Every new lead pointed to a sprawling network of corruption that extended far beyond Lane and Reed. The benefactor's influence was more pervasive than he had imagined. Walker's deputy entered with a file containing recent intel on Reed's movements, confirming that he had been meeting with Carter in increasingly secluded locations. Walker's instincts told him they were planning something dangerous. Lane paced his apartment, his nerves fraying. The explosion had been a step too far, and he knew it. He had no doubt the benefactor was behind it, but the fallout had placed a target squarely on his back. Reed's cocky attitude grated on him now more than ever, and their alliance felt like a noose tightening around his neck. Lane's phone buzzed with a message from the benefactor, instructing him to stay the course. The ominous tone only deepened his dread. The benefactor observed Lane and Reed's unraveling with satisfaction. Their usefulness was nearing its end, and plans were already in motion to replace them. The assistant entered with a report detailing the fallout from the rally attack. The benefactor's smile was faint but calculating as they read the public's mixed reactions. Fear and division were growing, just as intended. Reed met with Carter at an abandoned warehouse. Their conversation was tense, both men eyeing each other warily. Reed's confidence faltered as Carter questioned his loyalty and the benefactor's endgame. Carter demanded answers about the attack, his tone accusatory. Reed deflected, insisting it was necessary to send a message. The tension broke when Carter stormed out, leaving Reed seething and increasingly paranoid. Sophia returned to her apartment under heavy security. Her space felt invaded, the shadows of the break-in still haunting her. She called Walker to discuss the next steps. Walker's voice was steady, but she could hear the weight of responsibility in his tone. He assured her that his team was making progress, but warned her to remain vigilant. Sophia's resolve hardened as she hung up. She wouldn't let fear control her. Maya convened a meeting with the advocacy group to strategize their response. The attack had rallied their supporters, but it had also exposed them to greater danger. Maya's fiery rhetoric inspired confidence, but some members voiced concerns about escalating risks. The group decided to focus on gathering more evidence of corruption and amplifying Sophia's story through media outlets. Walker's team uncovered a critical lead: surveillance footage showing a car linked to Lane near the rally site hours before the explosion. Walker called an emergency meeting with his trusted allies to discuss their findings. They agreed to issue an internal warrant for Lane and to increase monitoring of Reed and Carter's activities. The benefactor received word of Walker's discovery and ordered a preemptive strike. They contacted Reed, instructing him to eliminate any loose ends. Reed's hesitation was palpable, but the benefactor's veiled threats left him no choice. He contacted Carter, coercing him into aiding with their next move. Sophia attended a live television interview to address the growing tensions. Her calm demeanor and clear articulation captivated viewers, but the weight of the threats loomed in the back of her mind. After the interview, she received a call from Maya, who praised her bravery and informed her of the advocacy group's next steps. Sophia's confidence swelled, but the sense of danger never left her. Lane's paranoia reached a breaking point. He confronted Reed, accusing him of withholding information about the benefactor's plans. Their argument escalated, nearly turning physical before Reed backed down. Lane's distrust grew, but he felt trapped, unable to see a way out without jeopardizing himself further. Walker's team secured an arrest warrant for Lane. They conducted a raid on his apartment, finding evidence linking him to multiple acts of misconduct. Lane was taken into custody, his protests drowned out by the weight of the evidence against him. Walker's satisfaction was tempered by the knowledge that this was only the beginning. Reed received news of Lane's arrest and panicked. He contacted the benefactor, seeking guidance. The benefactor's response was cold and calculated, instructing Reed to continue his work with Carter and warning him not to fail. Reed's confidence crumbled further as he realized how expendable he was. Sophia received an anonymous package containing a USB drive. She hesitated before plugging it into her laptop. The contents revealed incriminating evidence against the benefactor and their network. She immediately contacted Walker, who dispatched a team to analyze the data. The discovery was a significant breakthrough, but it also painted an even larger target on Sophia. The benefactor learned of the leaked information and moved quickly to contain the damage. They ordered an attack on Walker's office, aiming to destroy critical evidence. The assault was swift and brutal, leaving Walker's team scrambling to recover. Walker himself barely escaped unharmed, but the attack only strengthened his resolve to dismantle the network. Sophia and Maya met to review the USB drive's contents with Walker. The files outlined the benefactor's connections to high-ranking officials and detailed their plans to destabilize public trust. The revelations were staggering, but they also gave Sophia and her allies a roadmap for their next moves. Reed and Carter set their plan into motion, targeting a key witness in Walker's investigation. The attack was calculated, designed to send a message to anyone considering cooperation. The witness survived but was too frightened to continue, a victory for the benefactor's side. Maya's advocacy group organized another rally, determined to push back against the benefactor's tactics. Sophia prepared to speak, knowing the risks but refusing to be silenced. The event drew a massive crowd, but the tension was palpable. Security was tight, and every shadow felt like a potential threat. As Sophia took the stage, a commotion erupted in the crowd. Reed and Carter had infiltrated the event, their presence a calculated move to intimidate. Maya spotted them and alerted security, but the chaos they caused left a mark on the event. Sophia's speech continued, her voice unwavering, but the danger was impossible to ignore. The benefactor observed the rally's outcome, their expression unreadable. They issued new orders, directing their resources toward discrediting Maya and the advocacy group. The next phase of their plan was underway, and the stakes had never been higher. Walker's team launched a counteroffensive, using the USB drive's contents to expose key figures in the benefactor's network. The revelations rocked the city, drawing national attention and galvanizing support for Sophia's cause. But the benefactor's response was swift and ruthless, targeting anyone who stood against them. Reed's desperation led him to confront the benefactor directly. The meeting was tense, with Reed demanding assurances for his safety. The benefactor's cold response left Reed reeling, but he had no choice but to comply. The noose around him tightened further, and his paranoia deepened. Sophia's advocacy efforts reached a tipping point. Media outlets rallied behind her, amplifying her message and exposing the benefactor's actions. Public outrage grew, but so did the threats against Sophia and her allies. Walker increased their security, knowing the benefactor's next move would be their most dangerous yet. As the pressure mounted, Sophia, Maya, and Walker met in secret to plan their next steps. They knew the benefactor's network was vast, but they were determined to dismantle it piece by piece. The fight was far from over, but their resolve remained unshaken. Each step brought them closer to the inevitable confrontation, where the line between victory and defeat would blur beyond recognition. Walker sat in a dimly lit office, surrounded by reports and files that painted a grim picture of the benefactor's growing influence. The USB drive's contents had uncovered a tangled web of corruption, but it had also made him a target. His phone buzzed with a message from a trusted ally warning him of potential infiltration within his team. He clenched his jaw, knowing the benefactor's reach extended further than he had anticipated. Sophia sat in the advocacy group's headquarters, her hands trembling as she read the latest death threat sent to her. The words were clear: "This is your final warning." Maya sat across from her, her fiery demeanor unshaken. Maya promised to escalate their efforts, organizing another public rally. Sophia nodded, her fear balanced by determination, but she knew that every public appearance increased the risk for everyone involved. Reed met with Carter in an underground parking lot, their conversation terse and charged with paranoia. Reed's desperation was palpable as he attempted to convince Carter to stick to the benefactor's plans. Carter, however, was growing increasingly wary, his distrust of the benefactor gnawing at him. Their fragile alliance threatened to crumble as tensions escalated. The benefactor observed Reed and Carter's unraveling from a secure location. Their assistants stood by, awaiting orders. The benefactor's voice was calm but carried a warning as they instructed their network to tighten surveillance on Walker and Sophia. Their next move was already in motion, designed to exploit the rifts forming within both the advocacy group and law enforcement. Walker convened a meeting with his closest allies. He laid out the evidence they had against the benefactor's network, emphasizing the need for swift action. The room was heavy with tension as they discussed strategies to protect Sophia and Maya while dismantling the corruption. One officer's hesitation sparked a heated debate, revealing the growing fear among the team. Sophia received a call from a journalist who had uncovered new information linking the benefactor to several high-ranking officials. The journalist wanted to collaborate, but their urgency hinted at the danger of their findings. Sophia agreed to meet, knowing the risk but also recognizing the potential impact of exposing the truth. Lane, now in custody, was visited by a lawyer sent by the benefactor. The lawyer's message was clear: Lane's silence was non-negotiable. Lane's fear was evident, but he also harbored a simmering resentment toward Reed and the benefactor. Alone in his cell, he began formulating a plan to turn the situation to his advantage. The journalist meeting took place in a secluded location. Sophia listened intently as the journalist laid out the connections they had uncovered. The evidence was damning, but it also highlighted the enormity of the benefactor's reach. As they spoke, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Her instincts were proven right when a figure emerged from the shadows, forcing them to flee. They narrowly escaped, but the encounter left Sophia rattled. Reed's paranoia reached new heights as he discovered Carter meeting with another contact. Convinced of betrayal, Reed confronted Carter, their argument exploding into a physical altercation. The fight ended with Carter storming off, leaving Reed alone and more isolated than ever. Reed's next call was to the benefactor, pleading for guidance. The benefactor's response was cold, their patience with Reed wearing thin. Walker's investigation made significant progress. His team identified a key member of the benefactor's network, a mid-level operative who could provide critical information. A plan was quickly put in place to apprehend the operative, but Walker knew the benefactor would retaliate. Maya's rally drew an even larger crowd than expected. Sophia took the stage, her voice strong despite the weight of the threats against her. The crowd's energy was electric, but the atmosphere shifted when a disturbance broke out near the perimeter. Security scrambled to contain it, but the chaos spread. Amid the disorder, Maya and Sophia were ushered to safety, their resolve tested but unbroken. The benefactor watched the rally's disruption with satisfaction. Their assistant provided updates on the impact of the chaos, emphasizing the divisions it sowed. The benefactor's next orders targeted the advocacy group directly, aiming to dismantle their organization from within. Walker's team successfully apprehended the operative. The interrogation revealed critical details about the benefactor's plans, including their next major move. Walker immediately called Sophia and Maya, warning them of the heightened danger. The information galvanized their efforts, but also underscored the severity of the fight ahead. Reed, desperate to prove his loyalty, orchestrated an attack on a key figure in the advocacy group. The assault was brutal and left the target hospitalized, sending shockwaves through the movement. Sophia and Maya visited the hospital, their determination hardening as they vowed to continue the fight. Carter, now fully disillusioned with the benefactor, contacted Walker anonymously. He offered information in exchange for protection, providing details that corroborated the operative's testimony. Walker agreed, but he knew the benefactor would stop at nothing to silence Carter. Sophia received another package, this time containing surveillance photos of her family along with a new threat. The message was clear: her actions were endangering her loved ones. She broke down momentarily but found solace in Maya's unwavering support. Together, they planned their next steps, knowing the stakes had never been higher. The benefactor, aware of Carter's betrayal, ordered a hit on him. The attempt failed, but it left Carter shaken and on the run. He contacted Walker again, desperate for help. Walker sent a team to extract Carter, bringing him into protective custody. Walker, Sophia, and Maya convened with Carter in a secure location. Carter's testimony provided a detailed account of the benefactor's operations, revealing the extent of their influence. The revelations were staggering, but also offered a clear path forward. They agreed to launch a coordinated effort to expose the benefactor's network to the public. The benefactor, now aware of the growing alliance against them, doubled down on their efforts to destabilize their enemies. They activated sleeper agents within law enforcement and the advocacy group, sowing distrust and chaos. Their assistant hesitated before relaying the orders, aware of the escalating risk. Sophia prepared for another televised interview, her focus unshaken despite the looming threats. The broadcast reached millions, amplifying her message and galvanizing support. The benefactor watched with a mix of anger and grudging respect, recognizing Sophia's growing influence. Walker's team launched simultaneous raids on several locations tied to the benefactor's network. The operations were high risk but yielded significant results, including the capture of key operatives and the seizure of critical evidence. The benefactor's position weakened, but their resolve only hardened. Reed, now completely unraveling, attempted to contact the benefactor but received no response. Realizing he had been abandoned, he went into hiding. His paranoia consumed him, leaving him a shadow of the once confident enforcer he had been. The advocacy group, bolstered by the raid's success, organized a massive march to demand accountability. Sophia and Maya led the charge, their unity a powerful symbol of resistance. The march drew widespread attention, but it also painted a target on everyone involved. The benefactor, desperate to regain control, planned a final decisive attack. They gathered their remaining resources and issued orders to eliminate Walker, Sophia, and Maya. Their assistant expressed doubts, but the benefactor's fury silenced any objections. Sophia, Walker, and Maya met in a secure location to finalize their strategy. They knew the benefactor's retaliation would be swift and ruthless, but they were prepared to face it head-on. The air was heavy with anticipation as they steeled themselves for the coming confrontation. As the benefactor's plans unfolded, the lines between ally and enemy blurred further. The stakes had never been higher, and every decision carried the weight of countless lives. The final battle loomed, promising a reckoning that would leave no one untouched. Walker's office was silent except for the ticking of the clock. The raids had provided critical breakthroughs, but the cost of each step forward weighed heavily on him. He reviewed the files again, his focus on the names linked to the benefactor. Each connection was a thread in a vast and sinister web. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. His deputy entered with a grim expression, carrying reports of an impending attack. Walker's chest tightened as he realized the benefactor was preparing their next move. Sophia sat with Maya, poring over the latest data provided by Carter. The details painted a chilling picture of the benefactor's network, revealing layers of influence that extended into unexpected corners. Maya's anger simmered as she read about high-ranking officials complicit in the schemes. Sophia's resolve hardened. This wasn't just a fight for justice anymore, it was a battle for survival. Reed paced in a dimly lit motel room, the walls closing in on him. His paranoia had reached a fever pitch. The benefactor's silence unnerved him, and he felt abandoned, a pawn discarded when no longer useful. His phone buzzed with a message, instructions for one final task. Reed's hands shook as he read the details. The benefactor's plan was bold and ruthless, and failure was not an option. The benefactor sat in their hidden control room, their demeanor calm but their mind racing. The pressure was mounting, but their focus was unwavering. Their assistant updated them on Walker's progress and the growing public support for Sophia. The benefactor issued new orders, targeting the weakest links in Walker's operation and Maya's advocacy group. They couldn't afford another setback. Walker convened an emergency meeting with Sophia and Maya. The reports of a potential attack on their headquarters had them on edge. Walker emphasized the importance of unity, but the tension in the room was palpable. Maya argued for a more aggressive stance, while Walker urged caution. Sophia mediated, her voice steady as she reminded them of their shared goal. Carter, now under protective custody, grew restless. The weight of his betrayal to the benefactor and the danger looming over him took a toll. He shared more details about the benefactor's operations, including a scheduled meeting involving key players. Walker's team quickly mobilized, preparing to intercept. The meeting's location was a secluded warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Walker's team moved in with precision, apprehending several operatives without incident. However, the benefactor's presence was notably absent. Among the captured was a high-ranking officer who revealed that the benefactor had anticipated the raid and had already shifted their operations. Sophia's phone buzzed with an anonymous message warning her to abandon her cause. The words were chillingly specific, referencing private moments that made it clear she was under constant surveillance. She forwarded the message to Walker, whose frustration deepened as he realized how pervasive the benefactor's reach had become. Maya organized a press conference to counter the benefactor's narrative and rally public support. The event was tense, with heavy security and the ever-present threat of disruption. Sophia spoke passionately, her words cutting through the fear that had gripped the city. The crowd responded with thunderous applause, but beneath the surface, the tension remained. Reed watched the press conference from a distance, his emotions a whirlwind of anger and despair. He knew his role in the benefactor's plan would likely be his undoing, but he felt trapped. The benefactor's orders were clear, and disobedience was not an option. He made a call, his voice trembling as he confirmed his readiness. Walker's team received intelligence about a planned attack on the press conference. They acted swiftly, deploying additional security and preparing for the worst. The attack came in the form of an attempted bombing, thwarted only by the vigilance of Walker's officers. The chaos that followed left the crowd shaken but unharmed. Walker's fury was matched by Sophia's determination, both of them vowing to intensify their efforts. The benefactor observed the failed attack with a mix of frustration and resolve. They instructed their assistant to prepare for a more direct confrontation. Their focus shifted to neutralizing Carter, whose cooperation with Walker posed the greatest threat to their plans. They deployed a team to locate and silence him. Carter, sensing the danger, urged Walker to accelerate their efforts to expose the benefactor. He provided a list of locations critical to their operations, each one a potential target for Walker's team. Walker knew the risks but also recognized the opportunity to strike a decisive blow. Sophia received another package, this time containing a video. It depicted her family's daily activities, filmed without their knowledge. The implicit threat was clear. She called Maya, her voice shaking, and together they devised a plan to relocate her family to a safe house. Walker assured her that his team would oversee their protection. Reed's desperation led him to make a bold move. He contacted Walker anonymously, offering to trade information about the benefactor for immunity. Walker agreed to the meeting, but his trust in Reed was non-existent. The meeting took place under heavy surveillance, with Walker's team ready to intervene at the slightest sign of treachery. Reed revealed critical details about the benefactor's hierarchy and plans, but his information came with a price. He demanded protection and the opportunity to disappear. Walker hesitated, weighing the risks, but ultimately agreed. Reed's intel pointed to a final showdown, a coordinated effort to dismantle the benefactor's network in one decisive strike. The benefactor learned of Reed's defection and responded with calculated fury. They activated sleeper agents within law enforcement, creating chaos and undermining Walker's authority. Walker's team scrambled to contain the damage, their resources stretched thin. Sophia and Maya prepared for another public appearance, knowing the benefactor would view it as a provocation. Their speech highlighted the progress made and the challenges ahead, rallying their supporters and drawing more attention to their cause. The benefactor's agents infiltrated the event, but security thwarted their efforts, leading to several arrests. Walker launched simultaneous raids on locations revealed by Reed. The operations were high stakes and met with heavy resistance. One raid uncovered a command center with documents linking the benefactor to an international network of corruption. The discovery was a turning point, but it also escalated the danger. Reed, now in protective custody, struggled with guilt and fear. He knew the benefactor's reach extended far beyond what he had revealed, and he doubted his safety even under Walker's watch. His paranoia grew as he sensed that his time was running out. The benefactor, aware of the mounting pressure, prepared for a final confrontation. They gathered their remaining operatives, consolidating their resources for one last effort to eliminate Walker, Sophia, and Maya. Their assistant hesitated, questioning the wisdom of such an aggressive move, but the benefactor's resolve was unshaken. Sophia, Walker, and Maya met in a secure location to finalize their strategy. They knew the benefactor's next move would be decisive and deadly. Each of them carried the weight of the fight on their shoulders, but their unity remained unbroken. They prepared for the confrontation, knowing it would determine the fate of their cause and countless lives. The stage was set for the final act. The benefactor's network was unraveling, but their desperation made them more dangerous than ever. Every move carried immense risk, and the stakes had never been higher. The lines between ally and enemy blurred further as the battle reached its boiling point. The tension in the air was palpable as Walker finalized the strategy with Sophia and Maya. The benefactors' network was unraveling, but their final move would be the most dangerous yet. Walker's team had identified a critical operation site, a heavily secured facility believed to be the benefactors' command center. Every detail of the plan was scrutinized, knowing there would be no second chances. Sophia's resolve was unwavering as she prepared for the confrontation. Every threat, every loss, had brought her to this moment. Maya stood by her side, a fierce determination in her eyes. The advocacy group had rallied thousands to their cause, and their movement was stronger than ever. But Sophia knew the risks. The benefactors' reach was vast, and their desperation made them unpredictable. Reed, under protective custody, watched the preparations with a mixture of guilt and fear. His betrayal of the benefactor had placed him on the front lines of the conflict, but he knew his knowledge was vital. Despite Walker's assurances, Reed's paranoia consumed him. He felt the walls closing in, haunted by the benefactor's threat. The benefactor, hidden in their secure location, reviewed the reports of Walker's movements. Their assistant provided updates on the infiltration attempts and the arrests of key operatives. The benefactor's calm exterior masked a seething fury. They issued final orders to their remaining agents, preparing for a coordinated strike that would cripple Walker, Sophia, and Maya. As Walker's team moved into position, the atmosphere was tense. The facility was heavily guarded, and every step closer brought new risks. Sophia monitored the operation from a secure location, her heart pounding with every update. Maya worked alongside her, coordinating with the advocacy group to maintain public pressure and ensure the world was watching. The assault on the facility began with precision. Walker's team breached the perimeter, engaging in intense skirmishes with the benefactor's guards. Inside, the benefactor watched the chaos unfold through surveillance monitors. Their assistant urged a retreat, but the benefactor refused, determined to see their plan through to the end. Reed, watching the operation from a safe house, received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was chillingly familiar. It was the benefactor. They offered him one last chance to return to their side, promising protection and retribution against Walker. Reed hesitated, torn between fear and the faint hope of redemption. The battle inside the facility escalated. Walker's team uncovered evidence of the benefactor's international connections, including documents implicating powerful figures across multiple industries. The revelations were staggering, but the team's focus remained on capturing the benefactor. Sophia's phone buzzed with a message from an anonymous source. The message contained the location of the benefactor's escape route. She immediately relayed the information to Walker, urging him to act quickly. Walker redirected his team, splitting their forces to cover the new lead. The benefactor, realizing their position was compromised, initiated the final phase of their plan. Explosives planted throughout the facility were armed, set to destroy the evidence and everyone inside. The benefactor's assistant protested, but their objections were dismissed. The benefactor's voice was cold as they declared that no one would take them down without paying a heavy price. Walker's team discovered the explosives and worked frantically to disable them. The clock was ticking, and every second brought them closer to disaster. Outside, Sophia and Maya coordinated with emergency responders, ensuring the area was evacuated and preparing for the worst. Reed, still wrestling with his conscience, made a decision. He contacted Walker, providing critical information about the explosives' locations and the benefactor's escape plan. His voice trembled as he confessed his role in the benefactor's network, but his actions proved vital. Walker's team used the intel to neutralize the explosives just in time. As the benefactor attempted to flee through a hidden tunnel, they were intercepted by Walker and his team. The confrontation was intense, with the benefactor's guards making a last stand. Walker's resolve never wavered as he faced the benefactor directly, their exchange charged with years of tension and animosity. Sophia and Maya watched the live updates, their relief palpable as reports confirmed the benefactor's capture. The evidence recovered from the facility was overwhelming, ensuring that the benefactor's network would be dismantled. The fight had been grueling, but victory was within reach. The benefactor was taken into custody, their composure cracking as the weight of their defeat settled in. Walker's interrogation was relentless, peeling back the layers of the benefactor's operations and exposing their accomplices. The revelation sent shockwaves through the city, prompting resignations and investigations at the highest levels. Sophia addressed the public in a televised statement, her voice filled with emotion as she recounted the journey that had brought them to this moment. She praised the bravery of Walker's team, the resilience of the advocacy group, and the power of a united community. Her words resonated deeply, inspiring hope and a renewed commitment to justice. Maya stood beside Sophia, her fiery determination undimmed. Together, they pledged to continue the fight against corruption and inequality, knowing the battle was far from over. The advocacy group's efforts gained national attention, solidifying their role as a force for change. Reed, now under witness protection, struggled to reconcile his actions. His cooperation had been instrumental in bringing down the benefactor, but the guilt of his past lingered. Walker assured him that his testimony would save lives, but Reed's path to redemption remained uncertain. The benefactor's trial became a landmark case, exposing the depth of their corruption and the complicity of powerful figures. The proceedings captivated the nation, serving as a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked power. The verdict was swift and decisive, bringing a sense of closure to those who had fought so hard for justice. As the dust settled, Walker reflected on the journey. The victory was hard-won, but the scars of the battle were evident. He knew the fight against corruption would never truly end, but the progress they had made was undeniable. He looked to Sophia and Maya, drawing strength from their unwavering resolve. Sophia returned to her work at the hospital, her dedication to her patients renewed. The experience had changed her, but it had also deepened her commitment to making a difference. Maya continued to lead the advocacy group, her passion igniting a movement that extended far beyond their city. The benefactors' network lay in ruins, their influence dismantled piece by piece. The victory was a testament to the power of resilience, unity, and the determination to stand against injustice. As the city began to heal, the echoes of the battle served as a reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope could prevail.